Welcome to the show. This is The Business of Life. I'm Doug Johnson. Each show, we feature a local personality who will share with us a strategy for success. Today's guest is no stranger to the community and really has a dual personality. His name, Chris Noga, and his alter ego is the superhero of police chiefs, Chief Christopher Noga of the Twinsburg Police Department. Chris, welcome.
Thank you, Doug. It's great to be here with you.
Well, thanks for being here. You know, you and I go way back, and I know you've had quite an experience in law enforcement. Can you tell us how you got to be where you are today?
You know, I tell people all the time, I'm an accidental police officer. When I graduated from St. Edward High School in Lakewood back in 1988, I chose to go to Baldwin Wallace, then college. Now it's Baldwin Wallace University. I still can't get used to saying that. So, and my intention was to be a high school or middle school history social studies teacher and coach track and field. Somewhere along the way, I needed to pick up a work study job, and I got a job working for campus safety and security at Baldwin Wallace. It was a great job. You got to walk girls around campus at night from point A to point B. Really great job. And from there, it led to a job as a dispatcher for the department. And BW was and still is an expensive school, and I kind of had some financial issues. So the chief there at the time said, if you'll go get your certification, I'll hire you part-time as a patrol officer, and then perhaps we can talk about moving into full-time down the road. And that's what happened.
Okay.
The nice thing was I was able to finish my degree at a relatively low cost to me. And I finished my history degree, but I found that I really liked the challenges of working in law enforcement. So I graduated, finished in 1995 in June, and that August I was hired as a police officer for Cleveland State University Police Department. Spent almost 2 years down there, and while it was a lot of fun working down there, my wife and I at the time decided we wanted to look for something a little more out in the suburbs, place where we could raise a family. And so in March of 1997, I ended up in Twinsburg. I was offered the job out here, and I've never looked back, never regretted it one bit.
Wow. Now, as I recall, you've been chief for 10 years, pretty close to 10 years.
Be 10 years this coming January. I'll be the second longest serving police chief in the history of the city.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you. It's number one was the first chief, Glenn Osborne, 21 years. I don't know if I'll make it that long, but second is a good place to be in.
Well, absolutely, absolutely. And Twinsburg is quite a place.
Oh, there's no doubt about that.
And and we appreciate everything that you do.
Thank you.
I know you're just on the job all the time. So what really is a typical day like for you?
Well, I wish I could say it was normally this really exciting job, but I always say really now my role is more of, I joke as I'm an accountant with a gun.
Okay.
You know, while I still get to go out every once in a while and handle all the fun police calls that, you know, those guys that are out there wearing the silver badges, driving around every day get to handle, my job now is basically setting the vision for the department, making sure we have the resources to do what we, you know, what we need to do. You know, providing that leadership, training people, making sure that that leadership will be there long after I'm gone. So, you know, my days generally revolve around those things, whether it's updating policy, working on a budget, or meeting with staff. But they're key roles and key functions in what we do in the Twinsburg Police Department. So.
Well, one of the things that you mentioned was training other officers, and that really kind of harkens back to your days of wanting to be a teacher.
It is, and for a while before I was chief, I was also a state instructor for police academies, so I really enjoyed doing that as well. So yeah, that teaching bug is still in my blood, and while I don't get to do it as often as I would like to in a classroom anymore, those one-on-one opportunities present themselves quite a bit, and I absolutely enjoy that.
Super, and I'm thinking you also do a lot of mentoring of the younger police officers.
It is, or you know, not only directly, but encouraging my support staff, you know, my leadership staff to utilize their skills to do that as well, because I think it's very important. You can't you can't allow somebody to just remain stagnant. You know, it's our obligation is to develop people within our operation so that they're ready for those leadership opportunities when they present themselves.
Mm-hmm. What makes you successful as a chief of police?
Well, first I'd like to say, you know, I've got a great support staff. And when you surround yourself with great people who know what they're doing and are willing to go that extra mile, it makes the job as the guy at the top so much easier. I mean, I'm blessed with an assistant chief of police and 2 lieutenants and sergeants and a dispatch supervisor who understand what the mission is. And you know, these are folks that it took me a while, but they're people that I like to think I helped develop over the time that I've been chief to get them into those positions so that they can be beneficial to the department and to the city. So the biggest thing is being able to identify that talent out there within your organization and developing that talent for the betterment of the agency. And I think it also gives those folks a lot more buy-in to the department as well.
Right, absolutely.
So because they're a part of it.
Neat. When I introduced you, I mentioned dual personalities. And Chris, you're laughing here. On the one hand, you're the chief of police. And I often talk with people about perception being reality. And the perception of a police chief is, well, you know.
Sure.
And you've been called all those things.
Oh, absolutely.
Straight and narrow and so on and so forth. However, as Chris Noga, not as Chief Christopher Noga, you lead a rather exciting life.
Well, I don't know if exciting is the way word to put, but fun. I do have a lot of fun, and as you know, and a lot of the community know, one of the other sides to me is that I'm a musician.
Yes.
And I've been a musician far longer than I've been in law enforcement.
Mm-hmm.
I think I picked up the guitar when I was 14 years old,
okay.
And that was out of the finally realizing that I wasn't going to be an all-star athlete. So,
music took it.
So music kind of took it. It was something to do. It was a way to to meet girls. To have something to talk about. So I've been a guitar player in a band since I was probably 16 or 17. With a brief period where I wasn't, probably for 7 years in the 90s, but it's just something, it's my passion. I enjoy doing it, and it's a lot of fun. And it is something I think that most people wouldn't think of a chief of police doing, being a guitarist in a band. So.
Right. So what kind of music does your band play now? And we should give the name of the band, which is the Focus Group.
The Focus Group,
right?
Yes. And
so how did that come about? What kind of music, and what other kind of music do you like?
Well, the Focus Group started basically as a bunch of local musicians. Some of us were dads that had kids in the show choir, the Twinsburg Great Expectations.
Sure.
And somebody was asked to put together a fundraiser for the vocal music boosters. And so, we'll put together a pickup band. And they were guys that we kind of all knew each other, but had never played. None of us had all played together before. And it just came together, and it was one of those, well, what do we want to play? Well, he likes country music. This guy likes heavy metal. This guy likes something in between. So, we had this very eclectic couple of sets that night it was January of 2012, I think, 12 or 11. And the crowd seemed to like it. So we just kept going along that road. And we're a variety band is what we call ourselves. We'll play everything from Toby Keith to Tom Jones to stuff that you may have heard on the radio, AM radio back in the 70s. We like stuff that that people will go, wow, haven't heard that in a long, long time. So, and we're a very diverse group of guys as well. Tony Cianconi, our lead singer, he's a supervisor for Summit County Engineering. Steve Chauvin, our guitar player. Steve is a vice president for PNC Bank. Brian Exton, our bass player, who is actually a far better guitar player than I am, but plays bass in our band. Brian works for a company here in town. And our secret weapon, although we try not to let it go to his head. Jake Neese, our drummer, Jake's actually a sophomore at Mount Union, and we've been playing with him for years. But for a few years, we've watched him grow up as a drummer. But incredibly talented kid with a very bright future, and he likes hanging out with a bunch of old guys and making music. So, yeah, it's been a lot of fun, and we've been, like I said, 4 years we've been together playing. We've had a couple people shuffle in and shuffle out of the band. This year, we've played more gigs than we've ever played before. We've played about 24 gigs, so about twice a month,
really super.
Which is good for us.
Yeah.
We played on Fox 8's Music in the Morning in June to help promote Twinsburg, Taste of Twinsburg, which we played that event as well. We had a gig last month at the Roxino, Hard Rock in Northfield, so that was another one of those crowning moments. So it's just a lot of fun, and it's really, when I'm on stage playing, it's one of those times where I can forget about what it is that I do for a living and some of the stresses and the concerns and the things you're always thinking about when you have a job, no matter what profession you're in, and focus on playing music and having a good time.
Well, and that's a perfect segue to a topic that we've talked about, which is work-life balance.
Yes.
And how important it is. So can you talk about what you think work-life balance is, and obviously how everything you do plays into that?
My father came from a generation where they felt the best thing that they could do for their family was to work very hard and work long and spend a lot of time at work so they could earn a living and keep their family, comfortable.
Right.
And unfortunately, that meant missing out on some of the things that most people can do with their kids, Boy Scout meetings, baseball meetings, or baseball games, things like that. And I know my dad, we've had this conversation over the years, how he regrets that. And so one of the things that I wanted to make sure when I chose a profession was that I would get into something that would allow me to still do those things. Of course, I got into law enforcement, which means a lot of holidays and weekends and night shifts and afternoon shifts over the years. But it's just important to make sure, and like I said, I've been conscious of that you have to have time not only for your job and for what you're doing, but for your family as well and for yourself. So, and admittedly, there have been times in my career where I've kind of lost sight of that, and I've had to, yank myself back in. But I try to be involved in things especially with my kids. My daughter's a junior, and my son is a 6th grader. I coached my daughter years ago when she was very little and in track. So I helped coach the track program when she was in that in 2nd, 3rd, 4th grade. My son is a Boy Scout with the troop up at the Masonic Temple here in Twinsburg. So, trying to be involved with that because those are fun. Again, they're fun things for me to do, but you have to have those things available to you, and you have to find them, and then you have to stick with them so that you're mindful of that balance.
Right. And it's so important in today's world, which is so very fast-paced. And really, without trying, you can be on 24 hours a day.
And we are. I mean, like everyone, I have my work cell phone that comes to me 24 hours a day. I can check my work email 24 hours a day. And while it's become almost the accepted standard, probably in professions, across the board, you still have to build in that time where you can step back from it for a little bit and do those things that are not only important to you but are fun as well. So
I'm hearing this recurring theme about fun, which is really cool to hear. And I just I think it's really important to have fun and to make fun. I know one of the things that's important to you, Chris, are kind of inspirational quotes. And one of your quotes that I found that I think is very interesting, when anyone asks me what is my purpose in life, I tell them that life is my purpose. What does that mean to you, and what does that say about you as a person?
again, we can get caught up in so much of the little things that we overlook, the big things in life. We overlook the most important things. And I can tell you in my career, I've had a number of those moments where I've looked back and I've gone, some of those things that I thought were really, really important just aren't as important as I thought. Life is too short, and we mark time for a lot of things, but I don't know if we really seriously look at what that means. And life presents so many moments and so many opportunities to you. And I really believe you have to look for those things, and you have to be in this business of living life. It's too hard to live through regrets, or I wish I would have done this, or I should have done this, or I created conflict with this person. Life in the span of things is just way too short, that we need to focus on those things that are important and remember that that time is finite, and to make the most of what we have while we're here.
Right.
So.
I think that's very, very insightful. Here's another rule from John Wesley that I think describes you perfectly, and I'm going to read this. I'm going to cheat and read this to you. Excuse me, but I think it really encapsulates your being, and so I will try and do it justice.
Okay.
Do all the good you can, by all the means you can, in all the ways you can, in all the places you can, at all the times you can, to all the people you can, as long as you ever can. And really, that kind of puts you in a nutshell.
This profession, it's sometimes it's difficult for those who are police officers, first responders, because, admittedly, we see some of the worst things that can happen in the world. I mean, and here in Twinsburg, it's not an everyday thing, but we've seen some of the worst things that can happen.
We really have.
As a community, as a police department. It can make you. It could have this tendency to make you cynical and focus on only the bad things that happen. That there is bad in this world, and we know that there's bad in this world. But the fact of the matter is, I still believe, even after over 20 years of this profession, that my job is to see the good. My job is to help make sure that the good is seen in this world and remind people it's there, and doing good things, no matter what they are. But there is that, I believe, that intrinsic good in people, and that's why I believe it's really about doing good things and being a good person, and I think everybody has that in their hearts, and being true to yourself when you do that. So it's not about doing harm to people. It's about helping people. And that's why I'm in this profession, because it really is a helping profession. And most of the time, as a police officer, I'm basically helping people solve a problem that they have. It's very rare that we're helping people by having to find the solution for them via a pair of handcuffs or a criminal charge or something like that. In our community, it's really about helping and doing good. And so that's why, I subscribe to that philosophy, that that's what it's really, really about.
Well, and it's so refreshing to hear that coming from a police officer with everything that's going on in the world today. Yeah. That seems like it's almost the antithesis of what your philosophy is. So that, that's really very refreshing.
Well, and it's so easy for people to criticize and to find the bad, because we are in a society now that has access to far more information than we've ever had access. So, not only is it a police officer did something that was perceived to be bad, in our own Northeast Ohio area, but now we hear about it coming out of Chicago and New York or Des Moines, Iowa, or any of those places, and it's so easy for somebody to Google it and say police misconduct and say, oh, that's going on every day, everywhere. This is rampant. It's not rampant. There are more officers out there on a daily basis who come to work and want to do their jobs and do their jobs well, so and do good. So, and I think we're losing sight of that as a society, that there's more police officers out there doing good than not.
Neat. Chris, you and I have talked and have shared some strategies for success. Excuse me. There are three that I really think are very, very simple. And probably way back when, I would have said some comment like, well, deep, man, really deep. But anyway, just to throw these out at you and get your response and your explanation. One of the things that you have said is what you do for a living is not who you are.
You're absolutely, and I absolutely believe that. 10 years later, I still have a hard time when people call me chief. I've been Chris for, closer to 50 years than 40 years on this planet. And, and people do it out of respect. But it's not who I am. I mean, I've been a husband for almost 25 years. I've been a son for, 46 years, a brother for, 44 years. I've been a dad for 17 years. I've been a musician for well over 30 years. So all these things are who I am. And I think it's just, for some folks, you get lost in that, this is what I do for a living, this is who I am. So I think you got to be cautious. You always have to be cautious about that and realize that there are more parts to you than just that. If for whatever reason that day comes and I'm no longer Chief Noga of the Twinsburg Police Department, I'm not going to cease being Chris Noga. I'm still going to be me, but that's just a part of me that I no longer will be. And that day will come. Eventually I'm going to retire and someone else will do this job. So it's knowing that that's just a portion of me, and while I've enjoyed it, it's not entirely who I am.
And that also gets back to the work-life
Absolutely,
balance.
and that's how you keep that work-life balance, is understanding that.
Right. Another thing, that a strategy for success that you have mentioned is accept that saying no does not make you a bad person.
I think, and this is a hard one, and this is a hard one still for me, but if you're a good person, you don't want to say no to a request, whether it's something that has to do with work, whether it has something to do with, hey, can you help me with this? I have this project going on, or we need volunteers for this particular event, whatever the case may be. But there are times where if you say yes to too many things, and we were talking about this earlier, you overcommit and then you don't give it the 100% that you want to give it. So, you short your expectations. You've let somebody else down because they have these expectations of how you do things. They know how you do it, but you couldn't quite give it to them. So you just have to be able to say no. And I don't see anything wrong with that, especially when you can say, no, I can't do this for you, but let me point you in the direction of somebody who I think might be able to help you out with this and give you, who might be able to step in and do something for you, or point you in another direction. So, so while it's not a hard no, I can't do it, but I can get you somebody, or get you to somebody who might be able to help you. But it's just something, and I've learned it especially over the last few years, that for my own peace of mind and again, to maintain that work-life balance, you have to be able to do that, but don't feel guilty about it.
And that really turns a situation from a lose-lose, you're going to do a poor job, whoever asks you is going to be unhappy, to a win-win, where everybody's happy on that.
We hope.
We hope.
We hope.
Yes, we hope. The third thing, Chris, that we talked about is a quote from Warren Zevon, who is a singer-songwriter.
One of my favorite.
Who said, enjoy every sandwich.
Yeah. Warren was diagnosed with lung cancer. And as he had mentioned to David Letterman on his last appearance as a performer on Letterman's show, he might have made a tactical error in not going to the doctor for a number of years.
I'd say.
And, this was a guy who knew he was dying, and it just stuck with me. I mean, having a diagnosis like that where you're terminal, but yet to say, listen, enjoy every sandwich, enjoy every moment for what it is a huge, huge way of looking at life. And that's why I go back to, life is my business, is living that life and trying to embrace every situation, whether it's good or bad. You know, I've seen, like I said, I've seen tragedy. I lost a good friend in the line of duty back in 2008 when Josh McTarian was killed. And it made me really reassess about life and understanding that there are moments that are precious, and some people don't get all the moments that I've gotten or that I will get. So you focus on that every sandwich, you know, and enjoying that moment.
Chris, thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome.
It has been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Enjoy every sandwich.
I shall. Same to you.
Thank you.
That's what we're taught. I've treated this one like an old honky tonk. Greasy cheeseburgers and cheap cigarettes. One day they'll get me, but they ain't got me yet. And 'cause I'm living fast forward, hillbilly rock star out of control. And I'm living fast forward. Now I need to rewind real slow. My friends all grew up, they settled down. Nice little houses on the outskirts of town.
So there is a battle brewing in school districts these days. And the battle is, should we be teaching our students cursive writing or not? We all know cursive writing is what we do, right? Exactly. Now, if we don't know cursive writing, and I'm using we, the plural we, then how are we going to sign our name to our documents? With an X? Or maybe by fingerprint? You know, the old thumbprint? Or maybe an eyeball print? Who knows? But for sure, it makes things a lot easier if we can just pick up a pen and sign our name. And also, down the road, in the future, if someone wants to read something that we've written, how are they going to do that? It would like be going back and reading Egyptian hieroglyphics. So my comment on this controversy is, really?